It's the Blood Red Podcast, courtesy of the Liverpool Echo. I'm Guy Clarke. Welcome along. As the Reds touch down in Thailand, we've got the latest to bring you as Klopp speaks on the Jude Bellingham speculation. Diogo Jota heads the queue for the next Reds contract renewal. And of course, we'll look ahead to the first pre-season outing of the new campaign as Liverpool prepare to face Manchester United. To get into all of that, we have our Liverpool correspondent, Gorst, and the Wirral wonder, Rich Garnett, also here for the ride. Plus, we could also have a treat for you from Thailand in the shape of Ian Doyle, though I'm not sure if a treat and Ian Doyle are two words that particularly go together. But some live jeopardy here on the podcast. He may well join us, he may well not. But Gorsty, I'll throw over to you yourself first. And we were talking on Friday, before we get into the tour out in Thailand, we were talking on Friday about the fact that you'd been along and had a chat with Jurgen Klopp ahead of making his way out to the Far East. And today, obviously, we got the quotes on the Echo website of him opening up on that speculation that has been linking Liverpool with Jude Bellingham all summer.
Yeah, we got about 15 or 20 minutes with Jurgen on Friday, touching on a number of issues, really. There was a bit on the Paris reaction and him saying that he didn't get told by his family that they were caught up in the chaos until the following day. I think those quotes came on Friday. We've had the Bellingham stuff today, and there's a little bit more to come on Wednesday, so keep your eyes peeled on the Echo site for those. But yeah, it was an interesting one. It was more kind of, he didn't say a lot, but it was, you can kind of read between the lines of the two lines that he did say, really. It was almost an immediate, Bellingham isn't on the market. That player isn't on the market, which gives you maybe a little bit of a hint that they might have sounded it out at some point and being quickly told that, not now. And he said, that's the first problem with that player. In fact, that's the only problem with that player. So you're clearly a big fan. And, as I say, reading between the lines, you can speculate that perhaps they've just had a quiet little word with Dortmund. Doesn't need anything special, just Klopp texting his old mates at Dortmund and being quickly told that it's a no-go. And then perhaps they've moved on. I also think the interest in Aurelien Tchouameni earlier this year, a lot of people are kind of running with that as, a huge indicator that Liverpool were desperate to improve the midfield this summer. But that was another one that never really got going, to be perfectly honest. I think Liverpool checked on it, on the status of him at Monaco, and quickly found out that Real Madrid were going to be his destination. And that's going back, around about April time. So that was one that never really truly got up and running. So I don't really buy into that. But certainly, we do know that Liverpool are fans of Jude Bellingham, and why wouldn't you be, really? 19-year-old England international who's going to be, playing at the top level, Champions League for the best part of the next 10 years and beyond, I'd suggest. So it kind of reminds me a little bit, when you talk about Bellingham to Liverpool, of Henderson to Liverpool when he signed as a 20-year-old from Sunderland. He came in for quite a big fee at the time. I think it was around about 16 million, which was, fairly sizable back in 2011. And Liverpool felt that they'd signed a midfielder for the next 10 years and beyond. And lo and behold, there we are, 11 years later, he's the captain of the club and he's just led them to 2 cup finals, haven't won everything there is to win at Liverpool. So, yeah, I mean, we know that Klopp is a fan, but he also did say in the same breath that he's completely happy with his midfield options. He talked up the interest of Fabio Carvalho. He spoke very highly of Tyler Morton. He spoke very highly of Harvey Elliott, who would have played a lot more in midfield last season had it not been for that ankle injury. And he basically hyped up the players who were already there as well in the team. The Thiagos, Fabinho, Henderson, Naby Keita, and of course Milner and Oxlade-Chamberlain. So numbers-wise, I think Liverpool have got plenty in there this season, to be perfectly honest. I mean, I wrote something last week about potentially getting a bit of a free run at Bellingham. So can he afford not to do it this summer? But Liverpool are very relaxed about it, and of course they'll back themselves to bring him to Anfield if he is indeed the first choice next year. But for now, we'll just looks like Liverpool are plodding on with what they've got, and to be fair, they haven't done too badly, I feel, over the last 12 months.
No, certainly not. And it always feels, Rich, with Liverpool and the way the recruitment team works, that often it's the player they identify rather than specifically the need. As Gorst was saying, there are a lot of people read early in the summer that interest in Tchouaméni meant that a midfielder was definitely on the shopping list for this summer. Tchouaméni wasn't available. Bellingham perhaps isn't available either. Doesn't mean that all of a sudden Liverpool are just going to go around and shop for a third or fourth choice option. They will wait until the one they want probably is available.
That's absolutely right, and it's it hasn't always been that way, has it? We've seen down the years players come in that perhaps certainly weren't first or second choices, and we seem to have moved away from that now. I mean, Brendan Rodgers signing Mario Balotelli. I'm pretty sure he didn't want to sign Mario Balotelli, but there he was. And we're just in a different world now, aren't we? And because the team's so good as it is, it does put Jurgen Klopp in a really good position, doesn't it? He's not forced to take players out and ship them off to other clubs and bring in someone else because he desperately needs to re-engineer something. The fact is, you've just finished one of the best comprehensive seasons in the club's history, fighting on four fronts right until the bitter end. Pretty unlucky not to have come away with something which maybe sparks a bit of the thought process that you do still need to make tweaks here and there, which of course they probably do, and they'll try and learn from the lessons of the back end of last season. But in terms of the capabilities of the players at his disposal, he has got more than enough, and I don't think, if he can't get Jude Bellingham, I don't think he's going to be too disappointed with what he's already got.
Yeah, most certainly. Let's stay on the transfer news then. And today, Gorst, Nico Williams' stay at Liverpool finally coming to an end. And as we preempted and knew, he's off to Forest.
Yeah, good move for everyone concerned, I'd suggest. Nico Williams moves to a Premier League club. He's probably going to be playing fairly regularly, isn't he? Probably every week, given that DJ Spence, who was on loan from Middlesbrough, looks like he's going to be completely moved to Tottenham himself. So Forest have got themselves a 21-year-old Wales international who's played over 30 times for a Liverpool team who many have, championed as certainly the finest of the 21st century, one of the greatest Liverpool have ever had. So, it's a good move for everyone. Liverpool get a good fee for an academy graduate who's been at Liverpool since he was about 8 or 9, I think. Good luck to him. I think he'll do well. Play for Steve Cooper. He's obviously a manager who knows him well from his time at the academy, and he would have seen the potential in Nico Williams to be a Premier League player at a certain level, during those formative years. And he's going to be looking to compete in the World Cup for Wales, isn't he, in November, which is, I would suggest, as a proud Welshman, that for him that might be once in a lifetime opportunity. So, yeah, good luck to him. And Liverpool get a really good sum to the fee of 17 million. So works out for everyone, I'd say.
One of those, Rich, isn't it, where you do just look at it as kind of pin up for exactly what the academy can be there for. And I mean, you see with Nico Williams departing, the message he's left to fans as well, just how much obviously Liverpool will stay and be part of kind of him growing up forever, the role that Liverpool have played for him. But equally, when Trent Alexander-Arnold's in front of you and he's only a couple of years older than you kind of are always going to end up going seeking first team football elsewhere.
Yeah, I think you've got to be realistic about it, haven't you? It would seem pretty unlikely that he was going to be able to dislodge Trent Alexander-Arnold, one of England's top players, certainly top in his position, a club favourite, and it's just difficult. And as Paul said, with the World Cup looming, he want to cement his place in that side, and first team football is the primary route to try and secure it. So it's no real surprise that he's decided to move on. He obviously did well when he went to Fulham last season. I did wonder if he was going to end up there, but obviously he's gone to Forest, another good club, a bigger club, you could argue. And I think he should do well there now, and I look forward to seeing him blossom. But just in terms of the money they've got for him through his time in the academy, and then only relatively short time as a first teamer in terms of games, and then to get £17 million, it's just another phenomenal piece of Liverpool business, which seems to be fast becoming the norm now. It's almost like its own little revenue stream, isn't it? Creating these academy players who are good enough to play in the Premier League or the Championship. They've got Liverpool on their CV at a high level. The manager never fails to do a good job of talking each of these individuals up. And other clubs are lapping it up, and Liverpool take that money. God knows how much money they've raised from selling academy finished articles over the last few years, but that will significantly help quell the coffers when it comes to putting big money up for players like Virgil van Dijk or Darwin Nunes and possibly in the future Jude Bellingham.
Yeah, most certainly. Let's move on from kind of, I suppose, recruitment and retention of players or moving them on and talk about contract renewals in that state. And Rich was just saying there, Gorst, kind of about the money that's made from selling players can be reinvested in other transfer fees. Equally, it can go into increasing the wage structure that Liverpool do currently have at the club. And over the weekend, it's Diogo Jota, who's the next one whose name it seems is going to be in for contract negotiation talks to extend his stay at Liverpool. And you've written a piece on the Echo website kind of detailing exactly, I suppose, how he is the poster boy of how Liverpool want things to operate.
Yeah, very much so. Liverpool obviously concluded Mohamed Salah just a little over a week ago now, wasn't it? And like Joe Gomez and Naby Keita's still one who they're looking to tie down, and Diogo Jota seems to be the next one off the rank. But yeah, as you say, Guy, I did write something about it. It was just this idea that, from Liverpool's perspective, he's probably the ideal, he's someone who they'd hold up as a shining example to potential suitors, potential players coming into the club in terms of you come in and you might not necessarily be playing every week, but if you show that you're good enough to break into the team, you'll start playing regularly. You make yourself a star at Liverpool, and then you will be rewarded for your improvements and for your success on the pitch with, a higher base salary and everything else that comes along with it. So I think, when if he does sign a new contract, it'll be in improved terms and it will be deserved because he's had a superb 2 years at Liverpool, hasn't he? He broke into the. I think he caught people by surprise actually when Liverpool signed him, and he kind of took to Liverpool straight away. And he was injured for 3 months of that first season, and what was a pretty forgettable season really for the team as a whole. But he still scored 13 goals, and then just improved the following season, 21 in total last season, 15 in the Premier League. Just seems to be getting better and better, doesn't he? At the age of 25 now. I think he said that to Liverpool's official website today, actually, that he's kind of feeling as though he's taking on a little bit more seniority now that Mane's left and younger players are coming like Nunes and whatever else. So yeah, he's had a superb 2 years at Liverpool, and they're looking to reward him with a bigger and better contract, and you can't argue that he doesn't deserve it, really.
Yeah, definitely. I remember in a former life, I worked a lot with former Liverpool midfielder Ray Houghton, and he always used to say, Rich, of watching Diogo Jota, we worked on a lot of championship games together during his debut season at Wolves, and said, he's a youngster, he'll go right to the top. And if I was Liverpool, I'd be having a look at him. And I remember when Liverpool signed him, kind of thinking back and thinking, well, he called that one, and what a shout it was. And I suppose whilst everybody said Roberto Firmino was going to be so difficult for Liverpool to replace, in many ways of certainly the first half or 2/3 of last season, Diogo Jota had certainly done that. And a key part of that is his work rate, his hunger and desire to always improve and kick on. And I suppose not only whether it be contract negotiations, but he is kind of the pin-up boy for how Liverpool do their recruitment. Buy them young, buy a player who's got his career ahead of him, who will make his name at Liverpool and not come and try and trade off his name to arrive at Liverpool later in his career, maybe when that hunger's began to wane.
Yeah, I think he's become a prime example of the classic Jurgen Klopp signing, isn't he? He didn't come here with massive pedigree. He wasn't some big name that had been mooted for months or anything like that. We just all right, we've signed this lad from Wolves, and what an impact he made straight away. And my 10-year-old son's a centre forward, and I speak to him all the time about who you should be looking at as an example of improving your game and playing. And the example I use all the time is Diogo Jota, because of his work rate, because of his hunger, because of his attitude, because of the runs he makes and the movement that he has. He brings so many different elements, and I guess he's never really going to be sort of the big star name in this Liverpool side when you've got the likes of Mohamed Salah and maybe more flamboyant players like Luis Diaz around him, but it doesn't make him any less critical to this Liverpool team and how a Jurgen Klopp side functions. He's such a great asset, and the point you make about him not coming later in his career and coming at a point where he is hungry and looking to kick on, and obviously now well established within the Portugal international setup as well. Liverpool are going to get the best out of him, and they'll probably continue to do that for however long it is, and they'll know when he's just past it, because they'll probably sell him on for a decent fee, as they always seem to do with everyone now. But no, he's I think he got engaged at the weekend as well, didn't he? So he's obviously very happy in his life at the moment and happy at his football club. What will be interesting, I think, is just to see exactly what sort of role he plays next season, because obviously he's effectively dislodged Firmino from that sort of middle central role last season. But of course, we're expecting Darwin Nunes to play there, and so that might see him pushed to a different position or deputising for Nunes. How will that affect his game? Will he still be as effective? Will he get as many goals, or will he contribute in a different way? It's all interesting, as will be Liverpool's front three in general next season as things start to shake up a little bit. So when you've had those three players who provided so much continuity for so long, you kind of, if things aren't working, you can just revert to that type, can't you? It's going to be a little bit different this season, and I am interested to see how Jota will fit into that and whether he can still be as effective as he was last season.
It will be intriguing, won't it, Gorsty? Because a lot of people, I think, are quickly forgetting the 21 goals that Diogo Jota scored for Liverpool, certainly round the turn of the year, and the performance away at the Emirates to get Liverpool to the Carabao Cup final in particular was a real stand-up performance of him really showing the role he could have. I know we spoke a number of times maybe about actually in-game his performance wasn't brilliant, but you looked at the score sheet and whose name was there. It was Diogo Jota's. And with Darwin Nunes coming into the English game and having to quite clearly go through a period of adaptation, it has felt already for the last 2 years since Diogo Jota's been at Liverpool that it hasn't been about a front three. It's been 4 to fit into 3, or even after Diaz's arrival last season, 5 to fit into 3 positions.
Yeah, and I expect that to continue, really. I think when you're forking out 64 million for Darwin Nunes, and you know that if he's a success, he can be an £85 million striker. I think you'd imagine he's going to be starting more often than not. But just to have Jota just to come in as and when is just a real high quality option, isn't he? I think for me, I mean, I know he used to play off the left for Wolves, and he's played down the right occasionally for Liverpool, and he's played down the left a little bit as well. But for me, he's an out-and-out number 9 now. He's a poacher, isn't he? He's a predator. And one thing that I've been struck by him over the last 2 years is just the important goals that he scores. You know, you mentioned that Arsenal game there in the Carabao Cup. We put them to the sword, didn't he, in the semi-final at the Emirates. He scored against Manchester City. He scored against Manchester United in both seasons. He bagged one against Everton. Just looking throughout the teams he scored against, he generally gets important goals at important times, really. I remember being at Tottenham in December and Liverpool were up against it. They were 1-0 down, and I tweeted in our match blog, Jota hasn't really had a kick and he looks like a bit of a passenger, and no sooner the press send on the message, up he popped with a header from Robertson's cross and got Liverpool right back in the game. And he scored he endeared himself to the fans, didn't he, with his penalty antics against Leicester, when Leicester fans are giving Liverpool a stick all night in that kind of crazy Carabao Cup quarter final. So yeah, he's been another success. Didn't have the best end to the season. Last couple of months he kind of tailed off a little bit, but just to have him in the camp going forward, he's going to be a hell of an option for Klopp. And as I say, yeah, if he does sign a new contract, then it'll be fully deserved.
Yeah, definitely. 34 goals for him already during his time at Liverpool. He definitely has fitted right in. Let's now then get to the pre-season tour out in Thailand. Liverpool, of course, touching down on Saturday. And Rich, no sooner had they arrived, a press conference was hastily assembled, and Jurgen Klopp, first thing, before any questions were asked, got the opportunity to get a dig in there on Manchester United.
That's marvellous, isn't it? A bit like the Beatles arriving, isn't it? Going into Thailand for Liverpool players. I I suppose in one sense it was a good thing to get the press conference out the way on arrival, so it's dealt with and you can go and relax. But at the same time, I'm sure once you've been on a long flight, the last thing you want to do is have to face a load of questions from the media. But he handles things so well, doesn't he? And he gets a little jibe in early. That's an easy soundbite for stories for reporters and whatnot, and sets the tone really to build a little bit of I don't want to say needle, but a bit of fun between the two clubs ahead of the game on Tuesday. I was looking at United, and they just seem in a little bit of disarray. Apparently, the games are being shown on both club channels, but apparently United haven't even sent their reporter over for it, who works for MUTV and has been covering it. It's gone to every single tour since 2007. So I don't know. There's a bit of cost cutting going on or whatnot, but I think just building that little bit of playoff with United and suggesting that maybe there were more people there for Liverpool than United might add a bit of spice to the game when it's actually played.
Of course, you and Doyle, of course, are up close and personal with Jurgen Klopp on plenty of occasions through the course of the season. And I thought him opening up there with kind of that joke about Manchester United, it was just kind of Jurgen's back. He seems to be a master of reading the situation and knowing how to play it with the media.
Yeah, I mean, he was probably shattered, wasn't he? He just stepped off the flight. I thought it was telling that, fronting up in front of the press after the long-haul flight, he kind of got his lieutenants around him, didn't he? It was Milner to his left and Henderson to his right, and nothing really out of the ordinary was said. They were very respectful of it being in the region that they're in, and they were made up to be there. And of course, they will be, delighted to kind of just see how big the club is. You got to travel 6,000 miles around the world, and the supporters still as kind of passionate as it would be if you were on the Kop on a match day. So I think, for Klopp, he's never been a big lover of these tours. He kind of reluctantly accepts the clubs the size of Liverpool have to embark on them for the commercial, opportunities that arise and the glamorous friendlies that they play. But generally, I think he'll be looking to get in and get out and get across to Austria for the training camps and for the friendlies with the Red Bull teams, Leipzig and Salzburg, and that's when it really steps up for him in terms of putting his players through his paces. But yeah, while they're out there, it's going to be a busy couple of days, and I just think that the two teams or the two clubs arrive in Thailand in completely contrasting situations. Really, United have just come off their worst season ever in the Premier League. New manager in tow, haven't really made any headway in terms of their key transfer targets, albeit they've got Terrell Malacia in, but Ronaldo wants to leave. He's not even on the tour. And Liverpool show up and it's all a big happy camp, isn't it? New Salah contract, Darwin, Nunes getting involved in his first training sessions. And they've got most of the big stars with them. So, contrasting circumstances that suggest in Thailand at the moment. And I'm looking forward to tomorrow's game, actually, just to kind of get a little bit of a feel for where the likes of he sees Fabio Carvalho play, and maybe, or let's see what Nunes is like. We've seen him with Benfica, of course. What's he going to be like in the Liverpool red? And of course, just looking forward to seeing the likes of Thiago and Trent and the players you like watching every week, really.
And seeing some football again. It feels an age since last season ended now. But Rich, in terms of course, he was referring to it there, the fresh blood that Liverpool have already done and summer business is done prior to even the first pre-season game, let alone the first Premier League game of the season. Jurgen Klopp has spoke a fair bit about that in the media duties and rounds that he has already been going through. How key do you think this season to Liverpool it is that they've got fresh blood into the squad? Darwin Nunes, of course, a very big money signing, but the other two lads are youngsters, yet Jurgen Klopp is understatedly really bigging them up and speaking glowingly of them, albeit not wanting to put too much attention and pressure on them, particularly Fabio Carvalho.
Yeah, I think obviously the arrival of Nunes something needed to happen with Sadio Mane going. Just there was not unlikely to be any acceptance of just staying with the hand that he had up front, and maybe sort of promoting one of the fringe fringe forwards or midfield come forwards to a more prominent role within the team. Someone as big as Mane leaves, you have got to go and send some sort of statement with who you replace them with, and they've effectively done that with Nunes. The Carvalho one really is interesting, and I've said this a couple of times on the pods. I'm still not sure exactly where he fits into this Liverpool side, and like Gorst said, I'm quite intrigued to see where he might fit in some of these pre-season games, and whether it's going to be right sort of in that top three or in some sort of deeper line role, and if it is, how does that change the makeup of this sort of tried and tested formation that we've got so well just taken for granted really for Klopp playing? In terms of Ramsey, obviously he's probably not as much expectation. I beg your pardon, Ramsey hasn't obviously hasn't travelled, has he, because of his injury, but just we'll talk on him anyway. But there's obviously less as a new signing, there's less expectation on him because he's clearly an understudy for Trent Alexander-Arnold. But obviously anything could happen to Alexander-Arnold. Could get injured the game in or suspended or whatever, and he'll be thrust straight into the spotlight. But we saw previously with Costa Tsimikas that it is capable or possible to go out there and get a deputy who's more than competent in a position, in his case a left back for Andy Robertson, and bring something extra to the team. And also when things aren't going right, some sort of plan B or some sort of different option, which is exactly what I think we've seen with Tsimikas. And yeah, it'll be exciting to see when he gets his opportunity what he can do. But I suppose if we take it as a given that Nunes is going to be in there from the off and Ramsey isn't, then the real conundrum is Carvalho, and I guess only time will tell exactly how much involvement he's going to have from the off, or whether he's going to get the traditional bedding in period that has been afforded to quite a few Klopp signings over the years.
Yeah, definitely. What's your take on it, Gorst? Do you think we'll see him quite early on and involved quite a lot? Obviously, he has been there since the very start of pre-season. It feels as though certainly on this tour out in the Far East that Carvalho could feature a fair bit. Whether or not that's exactly how it's going to transpire during the early weeks of the season. And second part to a question as well that I wanted to ask you is, I was watching Erik ten Hag's press conference earlier today. It was referred to him, obviously, it's the third Premier League game of the season when Liverpool meet Manchester United as well. How significant then, albeit it's the very first game of pre-season, could it even be to lay down a bit of a marker of this is the level that Liverpool are at to Manchester United?
No, I don't think so. I don't think you can ever really lay down a marker in a pre-season friendly, but it's probably quite fortunate really for Liverpool that game with United is so early into the Ten Hag regime, because you'd imagine at some point he's going to finally get a tune out of that squad, even though I don't think they're going to be challenging Liverpool or City, but if Liverpool can play them earlier before that happens, then that'll obviously be a boost to them going on what will be a 4-game winning run against United after the last, they hammered them last season in the home and away. But yeah, it's I know that I think from Klopp's perspective, as I say, I don't think he's particularly enthralled by going to Thailand and having to put so much mileage in the legs of the squad. But it's something that the club deem as a huge kind of opportunity, particularly given that the last 3 years they haven't been able to. The last 2 years they haven't been able to go on these money spinning tours. So it's Liverpool's first visit to that region since 2017, and they've come a long way since then, haven't they? Back then, Coutinho was looking to leave, Salah had only just signed, there was no Van Dijk, and they're just a world away from that now, aren't they? They were just squeezed into the top 4 that season. Now they're arriving. Haven't won everything since then, and they are looking to kind of, I suppose, take advantage of the status that they currently find themselves in, really. Haven't won everything since they were last there, and under Klopp now they are one of the big European heavyweights, aren't they, once again? They'll be one of the favourites for the Champions League, I'd imagine, and certainly only City are going to be rivaling them for the Premier League, I'd suggest. So I think Liverpool see this as a great opportunity to maximise the revenue streams for the incredible passionate support that they've got out there. We've already seen that, and they've only been there for a day. So yeah, it's more of a commercial opportunity than a footballing venture, but it's part and parcel of being a super club at in the modern age. It's just something that they do every summer, and no doubt the fans over there are delighted to see their heroes in the flesh.
Yeah, it does also feel as though there is a mutual appreciation there. Like you say, it is very much a money spinning tour, but Jurgen Klopp and both Milner and Henderson really thanking the supporters for the very, very warm welcome they received. Ian Doyle is pitch side, it seems, at the stadium out there in Thailand, hoovering up plenty of content for us. We'll wait and see if he can join us on the pod. But Rich also got a glimpse last night of Darwin Nunes in his first Liverpool training session, and all of a sudden that again just really whets the appetite for what he's going to do in a Liverpool shirt.
Yeah, I don't think there's a Liverpool supporter around who isn't excited to see Darwin Nunes make his first appearance for Liverpool, and then obviously, hopefully, his Premier League debut against Fulham at the start of the season. There's going to be, I think, the narrative's already been built, hasn't it? Nunes v Haaland, who's going to come out on top in these sort of mega money signings, somewhat pushing the main man Mohamed Salah to the periphery in that particular matchup. I'm sure he'll have something to say about that. But I think sometimes when a club signs a big player, the focus is on that player themselves and what are they going to deliver. Who's going to be able to match what this player can deliver? I think that actually for both Nunes and Haaland, it's going to be slightly different because these are players that are coming in. They come in who've scored lots of goals and built their reputations on that. But they're coming into outstanding football teams. So the first question that's going to be asked from a Liverpool perspective, as we focus on that, is Darwin Nunes ready to mix it with these Liverpool players? Obviously, we suspect that he is, otherwise he wouldn't have been bought for such an amount. But he's been playing in Portugal in the Premier League. He's come over now to the Premier League, and he's in and amongst some of the best players, the very top players in Europe, and an outstanding Liverpool side, which has got quality all over the pitch, whether it's youngsters like Harvey Elliott or 36-year-olds like James Milner. As you would have seen in the fitness test at the start of the season, I'm sure that would have been a bit of a culture shock for him. But you hope that he would settle quickly. And the good thing is that obviously Klopp has a very particular way of playing and he has a particular way of training his players, and everyone goes through the same process, almost a rite of passage. And as long as he has the credentials to meet that, then there shouldn't be a problem. I don't know what the language situation is like, but obviously there's players in the team that he can form early relationships with in his native tongue, and that's going to help him, no doubt. And then he'll be able to do the rest of his talking on the pitch, hopefully.
I mentioned it before, Gorst, in terms of how he manages the media, Jurgen Klopp, but he has had a terrific record with bringing players in, of whether it's been bedding them in or throwing them in immediately. He seems to get the balance right. And whilst there'll be pressure on Darwin Nunes from external sources, fans wanting to see what he can do, outside media of how much his transfer fee cost, Jurgen Klopp so often is the master of timing it correctly. And we've already spoken about Diogo Jota today and his importance in the whole process. But it is a case, isn't it, as Rich says there, for Darwin Nunes, of the first thing is actually prove yourself that you're at the level to break into the team first and foremost, before there's any talk of how many goals you're going to get and this, that and the other.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. I thought it was interesting, the kind of contrast in the big money signings that Rich mentioned, where City were unveiling Haaland at the Etihad in front of hundreds, if not a couple of thousand of supporters on Sunday, and he was sitting down doing a big interview talking about how he's looking forward to playing Manchester United and whatever else. Whereas on the Liverpool side of things, Nunes was just another face on tour, wasn't he? Quietly going about his business, getting involved in his first training session and looking to crack on. I think Liverpool are keen to keep the pressure off him. They know that replacing Sadio Mane effectively is not an easy task. He's only just turned 23. He hasn't had too much experience in terms of, I think he had 1 year at Almeria, and then Benfica, and next thing you know, he's making that kind of incredible big money move to Anfield. So Liverpool will do everything he can to make sure that he's comfortable. He doesn't feel as though he's that price tag is a burden or anything like that, because he's only just turned 23. So something that can affect players differently, I'd imagine, particularly when they're a younger age. But yeah, I suppose for him now it's just about showing what he can do, adjusting to the team. The team are going to kind of adjust to him because it's a little bit of a different striker that they've had over the last 5 years. I think it's the first target man that they bought since Benteke, actually, which was back in, 2015. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Liverpool adjust. I think that's why these next few weeks, the friendlies and that are going to be kind of indicative of what's to come in terms of how they operate, because it's a new target man leading the line, Fabio Carvalho. We're not quite sure where he's best suited at the moment. Will Harvey Elliott carry on in midfield? Quite a lot of issues that are open-ended at the moment, and Klopp said on Friday that he's open to the players giving them the answers, really. People stepping up and staking a claim and showing that they deserve to be in the team. So it's a little bit of a, open field at the moment, and it'll just be, go and impress me will be the message, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I suppose to stitch the pod together and bring it full circle, Rich, we're kind of back where we started of talking about that midfield, as Gorst, you mentioned, like Sir Harvey Elliott there. And of course, we know that next summer may well be a chance to rejuvenate and renovate the midfield engine room with new signings potentially. But it could be a huge season for players already at the club, like Harvey Elliott, like Curtis Jones, to really kick on this season and take one of those shirts for the long term.
Yeah, there's almost a bit of an interview process going on now, isn't there? And I guess it starts tomorrow, doesn't it? Because here's an opportunity to prove your worth in a midfield berth and stake an early claim and get in the thoughts of the manager. We saw last season changes in midfield. Obviously, a lot of games being played, but we saw a little bit of rotation in certain aspects to try and bring other players in and freshen it up, and a little bit less game time for the captain, Jordan Henderson. And I guess that there is a likelihood of that happening again next season. But these players that come in, they have to prove that they're good enough to take a place in the team away from someone like Jordan Henderson. That's easier said than done. These are, you're talking about a player who can play to a particular level, but not only do that, but do it week in, week out, and provide the type of consistency that's required to sustain any sort of successful season. So it's a big ask for some of these young players to prove their worth, especially if they've got a little bit of inside track on potential arrival of a bigger midfielder. Perhaps not this season, but maybe next season. So time could be running out for some of them to try and get their noses in front. But these players have to show that they're up to the task, and I think a couple of them are. But it is not just, as I said, it's not just playing well, but it's been able to deliver it on a consistent basis over and over again, and that's the type of thing that is going to win not only the respect of Jurgen Klopp, but the trust. And he's more, as he has shown with other players in the past, if he does trust you and believe in an individual, regardless of what other people are saying, he will play those players, and more often than not gets a return on it.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it, Gorsty, that it is a big opportunity that knocks for these players if they are going to get that chance to really, I suppose, audition for the full year, as Rich said, the interview process almost, as it were. The likes of Curtis Jones has been knocking at that door for a good few seasons now, and he was trusted more and more towards the back end of last year. When you spoke with Jurgen Klopp, he spoke about Harvey Elliott and how brilliant he was the opening 4 games of last season. The opportunities will come. It's whether they take them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Liverpool they played 63 games last season. So it was a chance for everyone to get a game, essentially. And Liverpool will be hopeful of doing something similar again. I think for Klopp always says he doesn't have fringe players, but I think you could hazard a guess as to who they might be if Liverpool do have fringe players. Yeah, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain's and to maybe a lesser extent Curtis Jones midfield-wise. I think when they get their chances in, whether it be cup games or whatever, they're essentially playing for themselves in a way, because if, say, Liverpool start the 3rd round of the Carabao Cup in September, if Liverpool go out of that Carabao Cup, then the likes of Oxlade-Chamberlain and Jones and whoever else probably know that they're not going to be playing again playing regularly until the FA Cup rolls around in January or whatever it may be. They're basically then sitting on the hands and waiting for a potential injury to strike to some of the regulars. So it's a case of just taking your opportunities when they come. I don't think there's too much stock put in the performances of the pre-season friendlies, but certainly in training, you've got the chance to catch the manager's eye over the next few weeks. And I'm sure, as we're talking about some of the midfielders who don't play every other week or every week, I think they'll be looking to certainly do that. Seeing Curtis Jones has been speaking today to Liverpool's official website, and it's a big season for him, really. He's still only young, but he's now entering his third or fourth season in the Liverpool first team. He's made well over 50 appearances, and now's the time for him to really kick on and turn that promise into something a bit more consistent, on a regular basis. But I suppose that only comes with playing regularly. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword in a way, but that's pretty much what you have to deal with when you're at a club at the size of Liverpool.
And looking at his social media accounts during the off-season, Rich, it seems like Harvey Elliott hasn't really had all too much of a break. He's been out in the States, but playing, really getting himself into as good a shape as he can be for coming straight back for this pre-season and with that real hunger.
Yeah, he's setting an example to others, really, isn't he? Which is quite some feat for someone so young. But he missed an opportunity last season, didn't he? Because he made that great start. I think it was the first 4 games was really good. Then he got that awful injury, and that's pretty much. It wasn't just the injury that scuppered his season, but it's going out of first team contention, isn't it? You've got to start again. He'd been afforded the trust of Klopp at the start of the season, and then he on his return, it has to rebuild that. And of course, when you come in the back end of the season, when the stakes are higher, it's difficult to find a way back in. But he's clearly wanting to make up for a bit of missed time there. Of course, he's got plenty of time on his side with his age, but he looks really focused, very determined, and he looks strong. He looks a stronger player, and we've already seen what high ability he's got, and he's an exciting player. I think he's a player that supporters enjoy watching as well. Interesting to see, somebody so good on the ball and what they can create. And to that end, he's already a bit of a crowd favourite, I think. And now he is one of those players who is auditioning. So if that extra work that he's done gives him a slight edge over someone else in the season, then the effort that he's putting is going to be worth it. He wants to be a success at Liverpool. He doesn't want to be just making up the numbers and be sold in a couple of years. He's got serious intentions of breaking into this side. And by the looks of things, he's got his head down and he's ready to try and deliver that this year.
The auditions underway. Who will be Liverpool's X Factor winner? We'll have to wait and see how it plays out for the Reds during this pre-season and the season to come. But from myself, Guy Clarke, Paul Gorst and Rich Garnett, thanks for your time and your company here on Blood Red. It's bye for now.